What's up, everybody? I'm Jacob with HyperPlay, founder of HyperPlay. We are a Web3 game store, and I want to talk to you today about some of the most important user experience problems that are facing Web3, and in particular Web3 gaming. I want to talk about the freedom to game and the role that Web2 has played in preventing great Web3 user experiences. So if we want to understand the Web2 platforms, a lot of us have hoped that the Web2 platforms will become more friendly to Web3. And a lot of the criticism that we've heard of the Web2 platforms, like the Apple App Store or Steam or Google Play, is they have these crazy high transaction fees. And that's a big part of the problem with those platforms. They have a very parasitic relationship to developers. They derive huge amounts of revenue from the transactions that happen in the games or in the apps that are inside of their platforms. But the problem isn't actually just those transaction fees. It's that their business model fundamentally prevents the composability of blockchains from taking place inside the apps which are in their stores. They don't want to allow smart contract interactions. They don't want to allow your wallet to interact with whatever dApp that you want to interact with. They want you stuck in a walled garden. They want you stuck in a world routing all of your transactions through the centralized banking system that they are allied with so that they can extract fees from you as a game developer and so that they can extract fees from your users. So if we really want to build Web3 and we really want to create great user experiences for gaming or for Web3 in general, we have to first start by understanding what has happened to the interactions between the wallet and the game, which has been forced by these Web2 platforms. Today, before HyperPlay existed, essentially every single interaction that would happen between the wallet and the game would have to accept one of these three compromises. The game would either be built as a browser game so that it could have permissionless access to the wallet. This was great for not being censored, but we know that browser games, they have to accept a lot of performance compromises. Many players aren't going to see them as real games. We also see the other types of compromises where game developers build native games. They release them through these app stores and through these monopolies. And those app stores don't allow you to have any sort of a transaction in the game. All of the Web3 components are moved into a separate website where you have to leave the game and do transactions on a separate website. This is hurting the protocol revenue of the game developer. It's a super annoying user experience for the player. And we also see this third model where games have adopted embedded wallets within their games. And every time a player onboards into one of the games, the player is forced to set up a new wallet per game. A lot of the interactions that are allowed in the games are censored. And ultimately, all of the things that we could do with Web3, they're not really allowed by these siloed embedded wallets. So let's talk about building something different. Let's talk about fundamentally uprooting the Web2 monopolies and fighting them on every single layer. And let's build a vampire attack for Web2. We all remember 2021, 2022, where Web3, we all spent our time vampire attacking each other, tearing down each other's projects. Let's take all of the power of Web3 communities and protocols and tokens and turn it on the Web2 machine. So if we want to do this, there's many, many layers to dethroning these Web2 monopolies. The first is we have to build our own censorship-resistant distribution platforms. Those distribution platforms need to be backwards compatible with the games of today, and they need to be accessible to players today. We need Web3 native tooling that helps game developers build in the way that they expect. We need our platforms and our wallets and our protocols to be interoperable by default and to take advantages of the real value propositions of Web3. We need to use tokens and protocols and incentives to help incentivize user acquisition and retention. That's a big part of how Web3 wins. And we need portable reputation and great user experience across all of this. So I'm going to take you through all of it. The first thing that we need is a new app store. And so the HyperPlay app, which is available on Windows, Mac, and Linux, I'll talk about that more in a second. It has the HyperPlay game store, but it also has the entire library of the Epic Game Store and the entire library of GOG. All of your traditional games can be played through one common app. A lot of additional stores are coming as well, including other Web2 stores. So your entire library, instead of being siloed across all of these Web2 apps, is consolidated into a single app that you can use to play all of your games and unify your reputation across all of these stores. By bringing together those stores which have been more friendly to Web3 first, we're also creating competitive markets between the game stores that move the economics of gaming in favor of the game developer and in favor of the player over the monopolistic platforms that have had this parasitic relationship. The second type of thing that we need to do is we need to break down the OS silos. Today, you can use Steam on Windows, and maybe partially you can play a lot of the games on Linux, but the compatibility for Mac OS users is very poor. The Epic Game Store is only available really on Windows. So what we've done is we've built an app that's available on Windows, Mac, and Linux, including the Steam Deck. And we actually made it possible to play your Windows games on Mac. You can play Windows games on Linux or Steam Deck. And we're using various different compatibility libraries to make this possible. For a Mac OS user, even if you set aside all of the Web3 components of HyperPlay, we are the best place to play Windows games on Mac. You can access the entire library of the Epic Game Store and start playing games that you already know and love just on your Mac. And this was a big part of creating a better user experience for gaming in general. We have to be better, and we have to break the incentives of the Web2 monopolies to succeed. The next thing that we need to do to create a Web3 native game distribution platform is we need to embrace Web3 transactions. If the platform is based on taking taxes from in-game transactions, the incentives of the game distribution platform are always at odds with the game developer. We need something that instead of tries to censor and take fees from game developers, we need something that empowers their in-game transactions and that really empowers the game developers to build in a Web3 native way. So how can we do that? Well, in the same way that MetaMask historically injected the wallet into every website, HyperPlay has made it possible to carry the wallet into every game that you launch from within our distribution platform. So if you're used to Steam, you might have launched a game in Steam and seen that Steam is overlaying chat windows, it's overlaying notifications, it's overlaying achievements, and we do those things too. But we actually created an overlay that passes the player's MetaMask wallet directly into every game that you launch from within our app. That includes native games, or it includes browser-based games. Both are possible. And for the game developer, you have to make it super simple to interact with the wallet, no matter what game engine they're using, no matter whether they want to interact with it directly, with the wallet directly. So if you have built a Unity game, an Unreal Engine game, or you have some totally proprietary game engine, you can make simple calls to the wallet through the HyperPlay API. It is a client-side API that's interacting through an HTTP server. And these, whatever wallet method the player has selected in the app, those calls are going to relay to the player's connected wallet. It is not any more difficult to connect to our API than it is to use window.ethereum in a website dApp. It's almost identical. But if you don't want to code and you don't want to make calls to a window.ethereum-like API, well, you can also use a no-code, out-of-the-box SDK on the Unreal Engine called web3.unreal. And on Unity, we support Third Web as well. So what do the wallet-to-game interactions look like in a world of a native game distribution platform? Well, the player can actually select what kind of wallet method they want to use. In this example, the player is choosing MetaMask Mobile through the MetaMask SDK. In the HyperPlay app, it pops up with a QR code. The player scans it with their mobile app. And then as soon as they have a transaction in the game, we're using that overlay tech to overlay these notifications that you see in the bottom right-hand corner. Those notifications are going to tell the user to approve the transaction on their phone. It's a secure connection where the keys are kept off of the device and all the transactions are relaying to the player's mobile device. But what about players that want to just click confirm directly in the game? They already are onboarded into the MetaMask browser extension. They want a super simple way to do it. Well, the HyperPlay app actually detects and can connect to any of your existing MetaMask browser extension installs. We detect those. It's in a single click. You can connect to your existing MetaMask extension install, and then we can actually overlay the MetaMask browser extension on top of native games, not just browser-based games. No matter whether the game is browser or native, we're using that overlay tech to allow the user to confirm transactions directly inside the game. Okay, but you might ask, what about those users that don't already have a wallet? And we want to help onboard people who are coming from Web2, who've never interacted with any of this crazy Web3 stuff. Well, the first time that your game calls a transaction to the HyperPlay API, if the player does not already have a MetaMask wallet, the HyperPlay API will detect that there's no connected wallet. We overlay this notification box on top of the game, and we help the player set up a MetaMask wallet directly inside of the game without ever leaving the context of the game. Today, this uses MetaMask Mobile, but there's some really, really incredible, sick things coming as well that we're working on with the MetaMask team. I can't say anything more at this moment, but there's going to be some really awesome things around this user experience. The next thing is, if we want to defeat the Web2 platforms, we have to use the incentives and the powers of tokens to really break the moats and the monopolies that those Web2 platforms have. So very soon, we'll be announcing something that I'm going to be a little bit vague about today, but the game developer can start by going to our developer portal. They can create quests, and they can find games that are similar to their own Web3 game in Web2. They can define the eligibility requirements and apply Sybil-resistant filters to players, and reward players who have certain reputations to come and try the game of the game developer. This is a great way to identify real players, to incentivize them to come and play the game, and let's move the economics of tokens and communities in favor of real players over airdrop farmers and that sort of a world. On the player side, we can also do some pretty incredible stuff. The player can claim quests, rewards directly inside of the games themselves, no matter whether those games are native or browser-based. We use the HyperPlay overlay to make it possible for the player to make those claims. Next, I want to just say a little bit about our platform and protocol. If you're interested in building with HyperPlay as a developer, there's a few things you should know. One is we've built the most developer-loyal game distribution platform that exists. We're never going to censor game developers and force them to use specific wallet APIs. We're not going to try to tax the in-game transactions with transaction fees and listing fees. We want to have a fundamentally different business model than these Web2 monopolies have had. We want to empower game developers and players. And so we built a business model. It's very similar to what you would get with MetaMask. MetaMask doesn't charge you to use dApps. Instead, they offer convenience features that help improve the user experience inside the wallet for those who want them. That's our business model too. We have a primarily open source desktop app. There are a few proprietary things that are part of our ecosystem, but open source is part of our DNA and our values. And we do support native or browser-based games. If you're building a browser-based game already, and that browser-based game supports Window.Ethereum, your browser-based game already works perfectly with our wallet features. You don't have to make any changes. You just need to list in HyperPlay. And for your players, when you launch a browser-based game in HyperPlay, it opens in a full-screen window with WebGPU, which means that your game is actually getting graphics card acceleration. Your browser game suddenly feels like a native game. It performs better than when the player plays in whatever web browser, and you'll really up the user experience game. And lastly, I want to do a call out. So we've been built in really close partnership with the MetaMask team and with Game 7. We're a longtime partner of the MetaMask team. We're working on some really incredible things together, and we've worked to bring MetaMask into the world of gaming in the same way that MetaMask has been available in website-based apps. We're part of the Game 7 DAO community, and we're building an ecosystem for game developers. Our lead investors are Griffin Gaming Partners and Bitcraft, which are the two largest Web3 gaming funds. And we've got over 65 games in the HyperPlay store. Those are some of them on the right-hand side. And we also have the entire library of the Epic Game Store, the entire library of GOG. Any of these games that you want to play in HyperPlay, you can come and play today. That's it for the presentation. We've got about 5 more minutes. So I'd love to take any questions if anyone has any, or otherwise we can meet afterwards to the side. I hear there's no mic, so you have to be willing to shout really loud. Yeah, anybody have a question? Cool. Thank you so much, everybody. I'd love to talk to all of you over to the side, and thanks for being a part of our community.